Now, so there are a few pros, there are a few cons, and I think the question is, would I buy this guitar? Well, so I was asked to review this guitar. This is an Aeroband guitar, and it was sent to me by the company, and they said, would you mind reviewing it? So I didn't know anything about this guitar, so I had a look online for a few reviews, and I found a few reviews there that were pretty scathing. There were some people saying, oh, this is terrible because it's the worst thing in the world, can't learn on it, can't do this, you can't do that. And what struck me was, there were quite a few of those reviews, but what struck me was a lot of those reviews were thinking about it in terms of people who've been playing for a long time. But that's not what my channel's about. My channel is about beginners, starters, people who start and stop, start and stop. So I wanted to approach it from that angle, how it could be useful for someone who's just starting out, or someone, as I said, who started and stopped, started and stopped because things got a bit tricky. So first of all, what do we have here? This is not going to be a very in-depth review, by the way. I'm not going to look at all the bells and whistles here. So as you can see, it's a guitar. It's got strings here, and it's got strings here. Well, but these actually are silicon strings. Now, as you notice, nothing's happening here, so you've got to turn it on. So you're pushing this button here, and that happens. Right? It's the button on your right as you're looking down. And it's also a volume control as well. And the sound is coming from this speaker here. So it is electric, and you do have a USB charger to charge it when it runs out. And now I'm going to talk about some of what I think are the pros and what I think are the cons for starter guitarists. And the first thing that I noticed was it's in tune. That's the first thing. And I don't know about you, but when I was starting out, my guitar was out of tune so often. I'm surprised I actually kept playing. But it's in tune, so you know, no matter what chords you're playing, here's a G, here's a C, here's a D, here's an E minor. It's nice in tune, you know. That's my first favourite thing. That sounds really good. Now the second thing I noticed, I've been away for a while and I haven't actually played my acoustic for maybe 5 odd weeks or so. So I have been fiddling about with this for a little bit. And the other thing that I noticed was it doesn't hurt my fingers when I play. You know, you always have those painful fingers when you start playing or when you come back to playing. And that can quite often, you know, put you off. I mean, I've got to say I've been putting off playing my acoustic because of that little pain. Even though the pain goes away after a while, it's not something I relish. But playing this thing, yeah, that's pretty good. I enjoy the fact that it's not hurting my fingers. The third thing I noticed, you know, as I was playing these chords, is that I don't really need to press down too hard. That's another, for me, it's a bit of a really good thing, because you know, sometimes when you've got an acoustic guitar, if you're starting out an acoustic, especially if you've got a pretty rubbish acoustic, I know I started out on a really awful acoustic and pressing down was a problem, but this thing with these silicon strings, it's a piece of cake. I'm barely pushing down at all. And that's really great for bar chords as well. You know, bar chords can be a bit of a drama. So here's a very common F-shaped bar chord. And all the strings are ringing out. Now usually I have a problem with the B string when I play. Usually that doesn't ring out very well unless I hold it down just a bit harder. But here it's so easy. Doesn't matter where you're playing up and down the fretboard. It's easy, it's very easy. The other thing you can do with this is you can transpose. So, you know, sometimes you learn a song in the wrong key using easier chords. So sometimes a song can be in the key of E flat or F. And those, you know, they have slightly difficult chords. And what you can do, so this is an E flat chord here, which is quite tricky for starters. This is also an E flat, but it's a bar chord, so it's a bit difficult. So one thing you can do is transpose it. And so to play an E flat, making it easier, if I transpose, so these two buttons here are transposing things. And so now I can play a D chord, which is actually an E flat chord. Now normally you would put a capo onto the fretboard, and so using these buttons here is like a capo on the first fret, capo on the second fret, and so on and so on and so on. So I quite like that little function. Now strumming is nice and easy, it's pretty easy here. That's good. I mean, there's no real change on here. The same as when doing fingerstyle playing. It doesn't hurt your fingers too much when you play fingerstyles, because even though these are real strings, as it were, they don't have, they don't feel like real strings that you'd get on your acoustic. I think they're easier to play. Now, talking about the things that I don't like though, and it goes back to strumming. Now, I love strumming, I love playing rhythm guitar. But the problem here is here on this side. Now these are silicon strings and, you know, they don't do anything. So the problem is when strumming chords, you can't dampen any strings. So for example, if you're playing a D major chord, generally when you see the diagram for a D major chord, you have two X's on the 6th and 5th string, meaning don't play those strings, right? But even if you put your thumb here, my thumb is usually the one that's dampening the 6th string, but it doesn't work. Whoops, it doesn't work there. Right, you can't do it. You see, because you can't dampen these strings. So you need to have more control with your fretting hand in order not to play the strings that you shouldn't be playing. Like, so you've got the D, for example, an F. Here's an easy version of the F major chord, and you're playing, you're barring those first two strings, which is actually quite easy on this particular guitar. Then you've got the second and the third fingers going on there. So with this, you wouldn't play the 6th or the 5th string, but no matter what you're doing to try and dampen it like you would on an acoustic, you will always get these two strings ringing out. Now there is a muting thing on here, but that doesn't help you if you hold down on this part here. That helps you to mute the strings. But again, it doesn't help you dampen the strings that you should be playing. Something else that I really don't like about this guitar is you can't do any simple kind of hammer-ons and pull-offs. It's like you were playing a bit of country and western music. Country and western music, and people still call it that. Because usually with a bit of rhythm you would play, and you would like maybe play the open D, then hammer on to the 2nd fret of that D string. Let me show you what I mean. What I mean by that is, so here's my acoustic, let's hope it's in tune. So you can do, those little hammer-on techniques that I adore. Now if you hear me trying to play the same thing, it just doesn't happen, and that's something, you know, as you progress, you know, when you start playing and you get better and better, you start learning little tricks like that to improve your strumming, your rhythm guitar work, but that's not really going to happen on this at all. See, doesn't happen. So if you're playing the open D, then hammering on, nothing. Also in terms of rhythm guitar, you can't do any real percussive playing. You know, when you're playing the strings, you're generally just playing everything here. Now with percussive playing, let me show you what I mean. So you can hear where I do this. But that's not to say it's impossible. As I mentioned a moment ago, you do have this muting. You are able to palm mute. But I find it a bit finicky. Sometimes it mutes the whole lot, sometimes it doesn't. Talking about soloing and learning lead guitar work, this is where I think it really does fail. So if you're trying to learn, you can learn scales, no problem. See, although the problem I have here is when I try to do little scales, the way I play is I've usually got my hand here on the guitar, not muting it, but just here. So I've got to be a bit more careful. However, I can take this thing off. And so this is a kind of little simple scale. But so you can learn scales, no problem. But what you can't do is some of the lovely little slides, pull-offs, as I mentioned before, and hammer-ons. So if I was trying to play Johnny Be Good, it doesn't do it for me. This is why I think that this is not a good guitar for people who've been playing for years and years, because some of the techniques that you've got used to over the years, you can't put them on here. You can't do them. Now, so there are a few pros, there are a few cons, and I think the question is, would I buy this guitar? Well, probably not. However, because it's something like, it's nearly $400, like 350 quid. And the thing about this guitar is, for me, it's not one I would buy. However, I would buy it for somebody who's tried to play and stopped and tried to play and stopped because of things like, oh, it never sounds in tune, or, you know, it hurts my fingers, those kinds of things. I would buy it for somebody. And if somebody bought it for me, I certainly wouldn't have a problem. But I think it could be a good way of getting into playing the guitar. And you know, if you're pretty squeamish and you're scared of hurting your fingers, this is definitely something that you could use. In fact, I did try it on my little 7-year-old daughter, and she was able to hold down a D major chord yesterday without any problems. And she's actually quite small, obviously got very small fingers, but she was able to hold it down. So on the whole, I think it's quite a difficult one, really. I think there's people out there who would say, oh, I don't get this rubbish. You know, it's no good. It's not a real guitar. But I think that for a complete beginner who started at stop and start, so I think it could be quite useful. It is a bit pricey, but there are things that can help you, like the transposing, changing the key rather than using a capo is pretty helpful. Also the fact that it is in tune all the time. You know, as soon as you start it, you're in tune. I think it's really nice to sound in tune when you're starting out. It does have a microphone. You can plug in a microphone and you can sing along. You can also put in headphones here as well. You can change the sound of the guitar because this is actually something called a MIDI guitar. You can plug it into your computer and record. You know, if you're a songwriter, this might be quite helpful because you have different sounds. A couple of acoustics. Some electric guitar sounds there. I think this is a classical one, so you can do a bit of that. You've also got what is actually my favourite sound. I do like this one, and I like it though when it's much lower. This is a piano sound. This is why I would like one, because if I was writing a song and I wanted a piano, because I can't play piano, if I wanted a bit of piano sound, might come in helpful. There are some other, there's a bass in here as well. It's a bit low, that one. Just raise it. But that does sound a bit 80s stock Aitman and Waterman. And I think there's a banjo sound. Can't play banjo. I'm not sure what this one is. And then back to the original sound. So it does have a few other features. So listen, thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful. If it has, let me know down in the comments. If you've seen this guitar before, or you know somebody who's got one, what are their experiences like? Have they had good experiences about it or bad experience with it? Let me know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Happy strumming. So nice to be in tune though. Not like that though.